Hi, I'm Kara-Leah, the author of The No More Excuses Guide to Yoga, the book that we're going to be talking about today. Here's a closer look. I want to talk about the number one excuse that I hear from people about why they don't practice yoga. Nope. Want to know what it is? I'm not flexible enough for yoga, they say to me. I'm not flexible enough for yoga. It's like saying you're too dirty to take a shower. It just does not hold water, literally. But I get it, right? What people are really saying when they say to me, I'm not flexible enough to do yoga, they're saying, I'm afraid that when I go into the class, I'm going to be the most unbendy person in there and everyone is going to laugh at me because I won't be able to do anything in the class and it's going to be so far out of my comfort zone and I will just feel like absolute shit. You know what? I get that. I understand that. That is a really scary thing. Walking into a yoga class for the first time ever, especially if you can't even touch your toes, is so intimidating. It's like, I can't do those things. I can't put my body in those positions. What am I going to do when the teacher asks me to do this thing? And what are those arm balances? And you want me to do what with my spine? It's so intimidating. And I know this because when I first started yoga, true story, it wasn't that I couldn't touch my toes. I couldn't even touch my knees. That's right. Like when I would bend forward, my hands, my forward bend, my hands just got to my knees. Like that's how incredibly tight I was. So it took the teacher about 5 minutes to prop me up into every single pose, and they had to work individually with me because they had to modify everything so that I could do it. But I persevered and I found teachers that would work with me and who understood how tight and inflexible I was, and I kept going, and now I can touch my toes. I can do more than touch my toes. So if you feel like you are not flexible enough to go to yoga, I hear you, I get you, I know where you're coming from. But I also know you are never going to get any more flexible unless you actually go to yoga, okay? So you are the person that yoga has probably the most benefit for, because that inflexibility as you age is going to make you far more likely to have all kinds of accidents and injuries. You want to look after your body, right? You've only got one. You might as well take amazing care of it. So if you are inflexible, you need to choose your yoga class very, very carefully. And that's something I go in depth into in this book. I look at how do you choose a class and how do you choose a teacher. A couple of pointers for the inflexible. Go to a beginner's class. Go to a beginner's course, right? Because they are specifically geared to help people who have never done any yoga. And the implication is if you've never done any yoga, you're more likely to be less flexible. So the teacher who's taking that course or that class is already geared up mentally to work with beginners, to work with people who are less flexible. The other thing to do is to find a teacher who understands, right? Because there is nothing like a yoga teacher who has been inflexible and has had to work their way into flexibility. There are lots of amazing yoga teachers out there who are former dancers and former gymnasts, former athletes, and they've often always had a certain level of flexibility. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes it means that they don't understand the challenges of the inflexible person, okay? So when you're trying to find a yoga teacher, it's useful to say, you know, what were you like when you first started? What were your first biggest challenges when you got into yoga? And ask around, find out the people, the teachers that are really good at working with people who are inflexible. The other thing you really have to do, and this is absolutely crucial, is leave your ego at the door, okay? Don't try and do the postures that are just not suitable for your body yet because you're not that flexible, okay? So for example, when I teach a forward bend and people are less flexible with a wide-legged forward bend, I ask them to keep their hands on their hips and only bend forward as far as they can with a straight spine. So their spine is parallel to the ground like that. Often they'll just want to get their hands on the ground like everyone else and their spine ends up all hunched and their shoulders are like this and they end up like that. Doesn't do them any service, right? So you got to do what's right for you, even if it means you're going not nearly as deep into the posture, because in the long term that is going to serve you so much better. It means using props, using blocks. You know, if you're sitting like cross-legged like this, get a block underneath you to lift you up so your knees can come down. Using straps, if you're grabbing your big toe and lifting your leg up in front of you, grab a strap so you can do it with a strap and you don't get that hunched look like this. And talk to your teacher. when, like before class or after class, whenever you can grab a moment with the teacher and just ask them in particular about postures where you're finding it difficult to even approach the posture, and say to them, hey, I'm finding this tough, I'm really not that flexible, what would you suggest that I do to make it easier for me? And a good teacher will give you some ways to vary the posture, they will give you some props that you could use, and they may also give you something that you can work on at home. Okay? So this is something that I do deal with in my book. I talk about that fear that we have, that you're not flexible enough to do yoga, and I demolish it. I show it for what it is. And I also look at all the ways to work with an inflexible body when you do go to a yoga class. As I said at the beginning, if you're not flexible, my heart goes out to you because I was there too once, but you're not going to get any more flexible until you start going to yoga, okay? So I know it can be frightening, and I know it's intimidating, and I know it's out of your comfort zone, but find a good friend that you can go with, find a good teacher, find a beginner's course, and take that step, because nobody ever regrets starting yoga. I'm Kara-Leah, author of the No More Excuses Guide to Yoga. You can buy this on my website, and you can also get it in bookshops here in New Zealand.